what you gonna do tonight? I've got my mama's car keys and you've got a ticket to ride.
Hello, and welcome to Your Favorite Flick, a podcast where each episode we celebrate a movie that my guests love. We aren't here to be critics, we're here to be fans. Today, in advance of the sequel coming out May 1st, we are talking The Devil Wears Prada with our friend Crystal Coffman. Crystal is a girl boss herself who first saw the movie when she was an intern, so she's a perfect guest to approach this one from multiple directions. Along with the fashion, I think the characters are what people care about most in this movie, and we spend lots of time talking about each of the big four, and some time on an unfortunate fifth. This is a fun movie, and we had a great time with it. I hope you all enjoy it as much as we did. Crystal Coffman, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing this with us. First off, I think we should share that you were married to two-time guest Brad Kaufman.
Yes.
And I want to ask you right up front, is there anything you want to say to the audience to distance yourself from Brad before we get going here?
No, actually, funny enough, today is our anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Also, thank you. I feel like the movies that we've selected should not reflect on each other.
So let me tell you, often, not always, but often we start off by kind of talking about somebody's background as a movie fan, but I'm calling an audible on this one. I took more notes on this movie than I have yet on any movie I'm covered. I'm not kidding you. I took 7 pages of notes on this movie. So we have a lot to get to. So next time you're on, we can circle back to all that bullshit about you being a movie fan and all that. We're going to dig into this one and really get right into The Devil Wears Prada. I want to let you start us off, Crystal. Why The Devil Wears Prada? Why did you jump to this one right away?
So when you started doing this podcast, I was hell-bent on doing Idiocracy.
Right, you mentioned that.
Because I was like, what is the dumbest movie I can think of that we can talk about? And then we've been kicking around. Brad's in a couple of episodes, and it happened that somebody in our friend group said, Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out. And I was like, okay, sweet. That's what I should do for this podcast, is Devil Wears Prada. I would say I love the movie, but it's not my favorite movie. But I was like, man, this is like just a situationally fun one to talk about. It's not super deep, but there's some pretty cool points in it, some pretty good lines. Like, it'd be fun to talk about. Also, probably not a movie that you would normally pick. So I was like, that could be fun. So in the vein of my husband kind of giving you a hard time, I just went with it.
And yeah, great call. It's not necessarily a movie I would have thought to pick myself. But once you said it, and especially once I rewatched it, I was like, oh God, I'm so glad you picked this, because and it's a movie I've always had affection for, but it's got so much great stuff. Probably not since my first viewing did I really sit down and just watch it. Like, I've had it on, so it's kind of like, oh, that'll be a fun one. I'll have some laughs.
Same. I was like, oh, I don't think I've really actually watched it since I first watched it. So I better do that. So same.
When did you first see it? Did you see it in theaters or at home?
So this was actually funny, and I didn't put this together until after I had chosen it. I sort of saw it when I flew to New York with my mom. This is 20 years ago. I flew to New York with my mom. I was doing an internship, and she chose to watch it on the airplane. And I knew about the book because the book was wildly popular, but it wasn't my lane, so I hadn't read the book. I noticed that's what she's watching. She gets off and it's like, that was a really good movie. So I went and read the book first, and then I went back and watched the movie. So definitely enjoyed the book, which is a little bit different, and happy to talk about that too. But then went and watched the movie, and then to your point, I really haven't sat down and watched it, but if it's on, it's in the background playing. I'll throw it on while I'm working. If that's what's on wherever movie channel, it's just easy and, kind of fun. And I am not a fashion person. I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt today with you. I know our viewers can't see it. And I normally wear jeans and chucks. Like, that's my vibe. I still like the fashion scenes. It's just fun fluff.
I have not read the book, and I didn't even really think about it in prepping for this, but tell me a little bit about the book and maybe some differences, but just kind of your overall impressions of book versus or along with movie.
Yeah, now first disclaimer, read the book 20 years ago. So
Fair.
didn't reread it. Brain cells might be a little rusty, but my biggest takeaway in reading it and then watching it was how harsh the book is. Definitely goes deeper into the relationships. One of the I think very smart things they do in the movie is they make Meryl Streep and that character actually more likable. The book character is horrific.
It was written by someone who was actually an assistant to Anna Wintour, right?
Yes, definitely somebody who was in the environment.
Okay.
And also doing a little bit of research, I didn't realize there are a lot of famous people in there, but there are not very many famous fashion people. And the reason is everybody, or the reason that was online was that everybody was terrified to be in it because it would offend Anna Wintour, who it's supposedly modeled after. And so I thought that was very interesting because they're all beautiful people in the movie. I figured they were all famous, but there's only about two fashion famous people in there.
And I don't even know the names, but I think one of the designers when they're in Paris is an actual designer.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. I
yeah,
think that one's Valentino. That's what I read.
nice. All right. Well, diving into my 7 pages of notes here, don't worry, I'm not going to make you respond to everyone. But let's start with Meryl, because I mean, this movie, she's technically a supporting performance, but she is this movie in
Or
so
she
many
makes
ways.
it.
Look, I can suffer from recency bias at times. I genuinely wrote in my notes, is this one of the best few performances in cinema history?
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's perfect. She's believable. I don't see Meryl. She is this character. And like I said, compared to the book, she does it like so perfectly mean, but still likable. And so, yes, her performances are the other actors are great. I love Emily Blunt too. But yeah, she makes it.
I love that you point out that while she is mean, there is that spark of humanity in there. Any thoughts on how she achieves that? Because it seems like, look, as a non-actor, it seems like an almost impossible task to me.
Well, one thing I had heard, and it's been a while since I heard it, but it made sense because I knew the movie was there's a scene where I guess her husband's just told her that he wants a divorce. And she's in a hotel room in the middle of a big event and she has no makeup on and she's in sort of a robe. And something I had heard was that Meryl chose to not wear makeup for that scene and wanted to humanize that character in that moment. And so I think that's one, very clear way they did that. And then they do slide in more than they did in the book for sure. The idea of a woman in a really powerful position and that if she were a man, we wouldn't be as critical. There's a few comments in there about how hardworking she is, or they kind of bring up those comparisons that kind of make you go, yeah, that might be right too. So there's more of like the girl boss vibe brought into it that I think helps that character. Also, the stuff that happens in the book is way worse. The activities in the movie are around the job and the office and not being mean to be mean. So I think that helps too. They're rude to each other, but it's always centered around when they're working.
Or sometimes a character calling out something too directly can feel forced, but I really like that Andy directly calls out here, if she were a man, she wouldn't be thought of this way. Because I think it's a very important aspect of the movie that, especially idiot guys like me watching it, especially me 20 years ago, could have just been like, oh, what a bitch, a funny bitch, but what a bitch. And I think that's an important call out.
Especially 20 years later when, yeah, I think back for that time, that's not a comment you would hear much of. 2000s, that wasn't that long ago, but, definitely you wouldn't have ever heard the phrase girl boss, right?
Right.
That's immediately what I thought with where we are now. That was pretty fun. So I do think that that's how they soften that and help keep her that likable, just likable enough.
She is depicted as extremely hardworking herself. Like she's getting the book at 11 o'clock at night and she's clearly evaluating it right then. So She's tough on people, unfairly tough on people, I think it needs to be said, but she's also asking them to live up to what she does, not to some made up standard she has in her head.
100%. I also thought it was interesting that her announcement of her divorce comes on the heels of Andy's character breaking up with her boyfriend. And Stanley Tucci very famously says, "Let me know when your whole life falls apart," or something like that, and it'll be time for a raise. Here, her relationship's falling apart, and then so is Miranda Priestley's. We're at that level.
And right between those two is when Tucci thinks he has the other job and he says, "Oh, I'll finally have my life back for the first time in 20 years." So it's kind of
Right.
going on with all three of them at once.
So they've all been drinking that workaholic Kool-Aid.
One thing I was thinking about on this watch is, don't get me wrong, her dialogue's amazing, but Meryl Streep almost does more physically in this movie than she even does with her dialogue. Are there particular flourishes that you noticed?
For sure, the how she can cut her eyes, and it's very clear that she's not pleased or that you're on thin ice. So that comes across. And then they actually explain it even in the movie. They're like, they have some kind of review in there. The ranking of whether you've done good or bad has to do with like a head nod, which is unheard of. But then if you've done really bad, she purses her lips and the guy has to go redesign his whole line. Not only is she acting and doing these gestures, but this she has trained everybody else around her to see these facial features.
It's gestures and expressions as a vocabulary in a very real way.
Mhm.
And we aren't, and again, in a good way where they explain something, but it feels organic and necessary. Like why he would be explaining this to Andy because he knows Andy's going to have to respond to this stuff. And then it gives us as the audience great context, just great
Right.
storytelling to me. Look, we're going to come back to Meryl Streep because she's great, but I want to move on a little bit to the culture of the magazine. And we talked about how this informed our view of fashion. I realize the scene that does it so much for me is Stanley Tucci's monologue when he and Andy are first alone in his studio space. Are there things in that scene in particular that informed your view of that industry or informed your view of the world of the movie?
It ends up kind of softening your view. Again, he tempers this negative view of Miranda. But it's funny, from 20 years ago, that is one of the scenes that stands out because I often ask myself, Crystal, or do you have a problem here or are you just whining? And so maybe not so much the fashion industry, it gives that kind of glimpse. But having seen it as an intern at the time, getting ready to go into the industry, just sort of taking that view of there are jobs out there where you have to work like that. Are you really taking a responsibility in your role, or are you whining? So whether I'm meant to or not, I do find myself thinking about the whining. But I don't agree with in the same scene. She says, "I get it. I'm screwing it up." I don't agree with her saying that. I think it's more she needs to change tact, not that she's screwing it up. But that's my
Yeah.
opinion.
I wonder, is she internalizing Miranda in a poor way in that moment, like not quite understanding what she's even driving at when she frames it as I'm screwing up.
I kind of wish she would have had a different line for that. But
Okay. So you actually see it as kind of a screenplay weakness as opposed to even a character weakness.
yeah. Yeah, because that's the other thing. Like, she is a hard worker. I think she's smart enough to have even sooner kind of been like, I have to relate to this person differently. Like, this is clearly not working. Like, it is kind of funny that she has to get hit on the head or actually poked in the forehead by Stanley Tucci.
I want to move more into Andy and Anne Hathaway, but I didn't warn you about this. I have a series of public service announcements that I have to give throughout this episode. In the first one, can we just establish how upsetting it is that Adrian Grenier gets the very first line of this movie? From the moment he says good luck, he starts leeching my very will to live.
I I thought I was told we were not allowed to talk about him on this podcast.
Oh no, no, we weren't allowed to recommend other movies he was in. We can talk about my deep disdain for him, and not him as a man. He may be wonderful for all I know. I just think he's a poor actor, and a poor actor in this in particular, where the other performances are so amazing.
He's just such a throwaway character. And I remember in the book, there's a boyfriend. It is more substantive, but I don't recall him being that prominent in the book either. Because it's sort of the first boyfriend out of college or whatever, you don't take him seriously.
It's funny to say for a movie that I love so much, but the central character's arc is not one of the things I love about this movie, and that's a lot because of him, and I guess if I'm fair, it's not necessarily all his fault. The screenplay is not doing either of them any favors, but it does feel like this is going very much for a romantic comedy structure when the romance isn't really at the heart of this movie.
That's right. And I kind of like that about it because, like, I'm not a big rom com person. So, yeah. Yeah. No romance. Although I do like the Christian person as an actor, even though he was kind of a douche in this one. But
Uh, yeah, Simon Baker, is that right? Is that his name?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
The
Simon
mentalist.
Baker. So I'll go ahead. I wasn't going to do it this soon, but I'll go ahead to my second public service announcement. Choosing Adrian Grenier over Simon Baker is like choosing medieval torture over winning Powerball. I think Anne Hathaway's performance here is extraordinary, and I think this almost makes it more so. I mentioned not always loving her arc. This is an interesting thing to me where she is the main character, but she has to do kind of a lot of the straight woman heavy lifting in this movie. Like, have to do a lot of the explication while people around her get to be really funny or even get to be more emotional at times. I'm interested in your take on that.
She is the wide eyed, fresh out of college, ignorant to the world in a lot of ways, right? In starting that. And so she hasn't been in a workplace where things are it hasn't been in any workplace. That's the characteristic that she's able to take and see through all the loudness of this fashion industry. She's just like, okay, I've been teleported here, but I really need this job, so I'm just gonna hang in there. And I like that she's like, I'm just gonna knuckle down and make this work.
And an aspect of it that I like, and nothing wrong with the other approach, but so often in these movies, it's like the person is from nowhere and like they don't have much of an education necessarily. We don't know in detail, but it seems pretty clear when her dad visits that her family's probably relatively well off, at least to the point that her dad can give her some money for rent and take her to Chicago, the musical, not the city. And she went to Northwestern, which is by most estimation the best journalism school in the country. But there's something about like, oh, even with these advantages going in, this is brutal. Like, this is a hard thing to break into, and even as you break in, it is warp that you've never conceived of before.
Yeah, definitely fish out of water. And in the reverse, it right. So it's like I'm this smart person and I've done this journal to your point, fashion shouldn't matter and now it has to be everything to her. But in the reverse, if you think of another movie that is the other way, is like Legally Blonde, where she's everything fashion and she's like really good at it. And then she's got to go into this very serious world. She also has to be, there's this great line that Meryl Streep says in Prada where she's like, so I told myself I'd hire the smart fat girl. And she's not at all fat.
No.
And she's very beautiful. He had to be the wrong fit.
I will tell you one of the moments that rubs me a little bit in a negative way is when she tells Stanley Tucci that she's now a size 4. Is that a necessary victory for this character? Like, to me, more of the victory would be she looks amazing in all of this fashion.
I wasn't a huge fan of that one either because like, she's now conquered this challenge. She looks great. She's still smart. But don't take yourself down a notch with that line. I agree.
I do love, though, on the other hand, The degree to which once she realizes that fashion is important in this job, she actually seems to embrace the fashion for herself as well. It's not just about, or eventually not even primarily about, oh, I have to please Miranda or have to please other people. It feels to me like I can own this. Like this is a facet of my identity.
Back to lines that kind of confuse me in that regard, which is her boyfriend is getting on to her about like, I wish you would just own it. Well, I think she is owning it. Or maybe verbally she hasn't yet, but she should have just been like, I like these nice things. I like these clothes. Some of the imagery that you see is the very beginning. The most racy part of the whole movie is the intro, and everybody's putting on their underwear, getting dressed for the day, and all the fashionistas have these really pretty underwear garments, and of course hers are the Amazon Basics.
They're also meticulous about the whole thing where she's
Oh,
kind of throwing on clothes.
yeah, for sure. But even their undergarments are high fashion. So towards the middle of the movie or back half of the movie, Anne Hathaway now has pretty undergarments. She's made that core transformation. I wish she would own it. And one thing I wish the character would do is when she gets invited to go to Paris, she doesn't tell her boyfriend like right away. She waits. Just tell him. Like, what? Why are you waiting?
I actually had a note to talk about that opening. I have, and don't get me wrong, I think it's a great montage. I have a theory that I think they open with that in part for straight men who have been brought to the movie by their significant others.
Oh, 100%.
Kind of some false advertising of, oh, you're going to get to see some flesh in this movie. And then that's almost it. You know?
Yeah. Now flashback to my mom watching this on an airplane, suddenly wondering what she's gotten herself into.
This is not a movie where I think like the direction or the camera work is super flashy, but there are a few great montage scenes. And when she really does start getting into fashion, we see the montage of her on the streets of New York, and we probably see at least a dozen different outfits in a minute or two max.
For sure, and they do a good job of making that transformation sort of happen quickly. I was also surprised when they're at the end of the movie and she's talking about that I got this job months ago. I'm like, man, I feel like she's been in this job 5 years and 5 lifetimes. But yeah, great job on the montage. I will confess, I like seeing all the pretty clothes. Like it is neat to see what they put together, and in a lot of them I really liked what she's wearing. I think sometimes with fashion, or a lot of times with fashion, I'll see stuff that's being regarded that this is an amazing outfit or whatever. And I'm like, seriously? I don't think so. But hers, I really liked. I liked Emily Blunt's, obviously, and then Miranda's clothes. Like they're all very likable, even and high fashion.
Yeah, almost everything you see on people that they're wearing day to day feels like high fashion that could be worn day to day.
Mhm.
And that especially feels big with being true to Andy's character. Even though she's getting into this, she's still a Midwestern girl. And like, she's probably not going to be into the super experimental, quote unquote, weird looking stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
she's not a fashion victim, I guess I
right.
would say.
Very well said. All right, you've mentioned Emily Blunt a couple of times, and I think we should get into her. This is the first time, at least, I remember seeing her on screen. And for me, it was like a total, oh my God, who is this? Frankly, where I said, like, oh, she's going to be with us for the next 20 years. And sure enough, not that I literally said it, but I felt it. You mentioned loving her performance.
So we talked about Anne Hathaway's character being kind of both ways. Emily Blunt just is. Like she is that character. She embodies that I am this assistant to this woman. I revere everything that has to do with this job and what I'm doing. And then she's just really sharp. Her lines are so sharp and fun. Maybe that makes me an asshole. I just love it that she gives Andy a hard time, she's like, "Wish me luck." And she's like, "No, shan't," or
Maybe my favorite is Andy asks her, do you have plans this weekend? And she just says, yes.
yes.
It's
She's just so mean. She is that fashion person in the scenes. And then she's busy in all the background scenes. She's not in a ton of scenes, but she's always busy. So she's definitely done that character right. They're all busting their butts working for this woman. And even though she's mean, she is this hardworking person. So she tells Andy on one of her first days, Andy's like, I asked her what kind of skirts. And she's like, you don't ask her questions? Oh,
There's an aspect for me that she's trying to be Miranda Jr., right? But we also have these moments, and like a couple of them, when she runs into somebody on the street, she immediately says, I'm sorry. And then in the hospital, when somebody brings her lunch, she says thank you right away, almost instinctively. They never soften her too much, which I think is great. That overly, like, oh, she turns around completely. They show enough pieces of humanity that we're not like, oh, this is a horrible person. It's more like this is a person shaped by this environment.
oh, for sure. When they're at the, well, it's the knockoff of the Met Gala, right?
Right.
They're at the Met Gala having to help Miranda out with names, and Andy bails Emily's character out by remembering the name, and she looks at her and mouths thank you, like she recognizes. And then you do feel bad for her, like she's sick at that time, and she's talking about being a stomach flew away from her goal weight. You're just like, girl, please.
Yeah. What a sad, funny, and telling line that is.
And then I think the other one that everybody quotes at her is about, when she feels like she's about to faint, she has a cube of cheese. Oh,
It's some ways kind of a tragic figure because of all of that, but she plugs away and at some point hopes to, and I hope probably achieves being more than Miranda's sister. I guess we'll see next week.
I just
Assistant.
say, I think she's got a few more lines in the next one.
Excellent. My third public service announcement now. Every moment that Grenier is on screen, he is stealing time from Blunt and Tucci, and I will get him for that to this day.
I agree. We definitely do not have enough Tucci.
And let's talk Tucci. I will tell you, I love Stanley Tucci so much that I could do a Tucci time every episode, even for movies he's not in. Just like talk about Stanley Tucci for 5 minutes. So tell me about Tucci in this movie.
You like him as like the mentor figure for Andrea, and then you like that he's the only man hanging out. I mean, there's another guy that has a few appearances, but here he is, a man in a woman's world. And again, also this super hard worker, but clearly has a passion for what he does. The scenes where they are showing him working, Miranda likes him, appreciates his opinion, doesn't treat him like dog shit until the very end. And so you like that he's like this character that's like got it figured out. But he's also funny and he has cutting lines with Andy, like we mentioned earlier. And he's just Stanley Tucci. I mean, come on. You always like his look. You just instantly want to be friends with him, no matter what he's doing.
He's one of those people for me, and I think of movies with this, like The Terminal and The Lovely Bones, where even movies that are widely not loved, they are worth it to me just for Tucci. If he's got at all a decent part in it, I'm along for the ride.
One of my favorite Tucci movies is really not even a Tucci movie. He's got a small part, is Easy A.
Oh, what a great, I think I recommended that up on the Oscar episode, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he's sitting there smoking a joint and like,
And this kind of shows that I haven't seen it in a while, but when she first goes to him as like a confidant, I actually wrote down how sad is it that this is her confidant in this situation. This is the guy who's already made fun of her weight.
I hadn't thought about that either. As you mentioned it, I wonder if maybe it's the outsider vibe. He's separated enough from Emily and Miranda that it's somehow, Lord help her, a safer space. Like, oh, and or maybe she respects him as somebody who's figured it out.
Maybe this is being overly idealist, but that she does sense something in him that goes beyond the kind of smartass facade he puts on. And of course, that very first scene where they're together, he talks about his upbringing and how he's one of like 6 or 7 brothers and he'd pretend to go to soccer practice. I don't know if it's ever explicitly said that he's gay, but clearly a gay coded character. Um,
Thought he said he was either way, but then you also love his clothes.
and to your point of not looking so out there, it would have been very easy, probably, especially with the gay character, to make him all flair. And instead, like, you always look at him and go, oh, he looks fantastic, but it's not over the top. It's like these amazing suits and things that are just sharp as all hell.
It's got that same polish, that Miranda's got, where it's like, not only is this fashion, it's high fashion. We're in another stratosphere. We're in the highest stratosphere of this industry.
It's a funny kind of thing where it's like they are the leaders of this industry, so of course they have to look great, but maybe they don't have to show off like somebody at like a smaller magazine or a smaller fashion house might.
Keep that sort of that understated. Oh, for sure. Definitely less avant-garde. Although there is a we do Brown, I like the part of the movie where he does pull out like this really hideous poncho. I'm like, oh, we're going that way.
Well, and I wonder in that moment, is he still fucking with her a little bit? Because like they're
Yeah.
getting later at that point, but you know, he's still got that in him.
Yeah.
I almost can't say enough about him. It's a terrific performance that he can bring that warmth to a character that is so prickly on the surface, and then we get these truly emotional scenes. I love when he says she'll make it right with me after Miranda has totally screwed him over in his plan to escape. I think it's fair to say, and he calls him on it and says, "Will she?" And he says he doesn't know, but like he doesn't say no. He still maintains that hope that Miranda has some sort of loyalty to him too.
He says, I have to hope. I was thinking about that too, where you're so ingrained in a job or in a role that you've given up that power to make those decisions. And in a lot of ways, that's how Andy's doing that, right? Like she leaves, she claims that power to leave, and he doesn't. And making those choices. And yeah, I feel bad for him because, yeah, he feels now he's at her whim and will always be at her whim. And a lot of people are in this movie, right? They all end up having to make choices, but they're very tough choices because she's threatened him on the other side of the choice, like telling Andy she'll basically never work in journalism again if she screws this up, or I'll be very disappointed. And you're going, oh my God, my life is ruined.
As far as the threats, I think the one that I might love the most because it's just so indicative of the period is the request for the Harry Potter manuscript.
Yes.
Like, of all the impossible gets that Miranda could think of, it feels like the most impossible get for 2005, 2006.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect because it's also so relatable. Like everybody knows about that book, would know how hard our book would be to get, and especially whatever sixth book. I mean, you have the same reaction that Andy does of like, well, there it goes.
But I would just walk away at that point, maybe curse Miranda out. Like the fact that she buckles down.
Right.
I also think as another cool, like just little filmmaking decision, when she puts the manuscript down and she says, "Oh, only one." I think we feel for a moment, oh, well, she's going to get away with that, but Miranda's still disappointed. But no, Andy still has another card to play. And we don't even get like an excited handoff to the girls. We just get this shot of the girls on the train, each reading their own copy of the manuscript that's been nicely bound. I just think it's such a wonderful little moment of victory for Andy.
Miranda turns around in her chair with her coffee. I'm like, you've won this round, you know?
You won this round is great because she almost does have like a cartoon villain feel at times. So it has that like Scooby Doo feel to it. Damn kid, how did you manage this one? I like that you pointed out the timing of we've seen her getting very competent at her job at that point. And the thing she's in trouble for is frankly a personal thing, not a professional thing. She had the bad luck Well, she didn't exactly follow instructions, but she kind of had the bad luck to walk in on Miranda's argument with her husband, and it's that she's paying the price for that.
Yeah, although you've had this whole movie of abuse, and how in the world do you walk up this staircase thinking that's a good idea? Also, the twins are so funny. Like, you've got teenage twins who I don't even think you may not have ever met, right? And
I
one of
think
them
that may be their only dialogue scene.
right, and one of them
Yeah.
clearly looks at the other one like, "Oh, yeah, you've crossed it," and still his character's like, "Yeah, I think I'll go upstairs." Like, come on.
Yeah, it did strike me a little bit like, come on, Andy's not this stupid.
No.
Like she would catch that. These girls are, but she is super flustered. And look, sometimes you need suspension of disbelief, and it makes kind of our first telling personal scene about Miranda, which then sets us up
Yes.
later for Paris. So I think
Yes.
it's a worthwhile scene. But yes,
Oh,
there
for
is
sure.
where they really set her up. So for the audience, just quick scene setting for this. She's been told to deliver the book to Miranda, given very exact instructions, but she can't figure out like what closet she's supposed to hang the dry cleaning in. And the girls do presumably point her in the right direction for that. And then, like brilliant little con women, they drop the hammer. And only after establishing that confidence do they go in for the next step and make the kill.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
I think certainly we believe Miranda would be hard to be married to. She's got so much going on and we know she can be difficult. But I think it is worth noting that multiple times we have heard her say, "Oh, set up dinner with my husband at such and such." So I think that sets us up to say, okay, well, she's not completely neglecting this man and just makes her a little more human.
That's a really good thought. I wasn't thinking about it that way. I was thinking of it as she's a public figure. People like that go out every night, are seen every night. But yeah, you're right. Like it's always trying to meet the husband and have some sort of a personal life, even if it is out.
Right,
Um,
right. That it feels like she could have been just having dinner with Karl Lagerfeld or somebody like that every night. It's
Yeah.
interesting that we hear that the husband's at least included. No, that's not to let her off the hook or him off the hook, but we don't know what those dinners are. It could be very much just about being spotted. I do think it's hilarious, the little gag that she never knows the name of a restaurant. And it's
Yeah.
always like,
Or
the place I went that time with so and so.
yeah. Or that purse at that shop that I stopped by. Like, that would drive me mad. But you're right on of humanizing, because then there's this whole thing about back to the impossible task, the one we failed at, which was getting a plane out of a hurricane in Florida so that she can be home for her girls' recital. So she's completely unreasonable, but sort of for the best of reasons.
She really loves those girls and really cares about being part of their lives, even though you don't see them together. The character gets that across. And I think for me, there's something going on here where, as amazing an actress as Meryl Streep is, I don't know that she can ever quite disguise her warmth. And I think that plays in this character. I don't say this at all to run her down, but she's just an obvious comparison to Streep. Like Glenn Close can do outright mean or devious in a way that I don't feel a layer of warmth. And look, maybe that's to her credit. With Streep, I can't think of a performance where I don't feel some sort of humanity shining through. So, something I find myself torn about, what do we feel about Andy's decision at the end of the movie to walk away and specifically to walk away in Paris just kind of without any, warning or even saying anything?
You kinda like it as far as just the drama of it. I've had enough. Uh, Consequences be damned. So I like it. I will say, and again, 20 years ago, read the book. The book ends similarly, although for a darker reason. So if I recall correctly, she has to leave because her roommate has overdosed. I don't think died. I can't remember, but it was a tragic, like, I have to choose being here or being there for my friend. So that's what happens in the book, best I can remember. And so the movie is following a little bit of that, I think. So some of that may be a nod to the readers. You like the drama of here goes my 2000s pre-smartphone phone into the fountain and fucked it. I won't become Stanley Tucci. I won't be that person waiting to be rewarded and never being rewarded. I am going to choose my path. So I like it. I think it's probably a little unrealistic. I think even in the book they talk about how she's got to figure out how to pay for her airline ticket to get back or something.
You're in Paris and you're trying to fly back now on short notice because either you're paying for a Paris hotel room, which ain't cheap, having been recently,
Right.
or you're trying to get a flight on short notice. Either way, that seems tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, a little unrealistic, but I like it for the movie.
And you're actually, I wouldn't say I felt like 180 degrees from that, but you're turning me around a little bit more. I guess what I felt to some degree is it's empowering, but would it have even been more empowering to say, hey, to Miranda, hey, I'm leaving this. It is not for me. That maybe there's a little sense for me of it's certainly not easy. That would be unfair, but that it's walking away as opposed to taking it head on.
Got you. So now that you kind of say it that way, yeah, this is kind of gutless. Like you just ghost her to use today's lingo.
To be fair, she's a dangerous person to ghost, right? So, I mean, you could be doing even more damage.
Right. Like you don't want to piss her off. Now you really pissed her off. Yeah, I see that too. Where it's like, we're just going to go for gold in this walkout.
Now, the thing I do hate, and this one I have to be fair, is not Adrian Grenier's fault as a performer. The fact that she goes and apologizes to him, and there is no kind of reciprocal, hey, maybe I was too hard about this thing. I have some understanding that it was your job and you were trying to get ahead, and I was maybe too quick to, I don't know, almost whether that's fair or not, just from a character standpoint, it kind of bothered me that one of the last things we see with her is her having to apologize and the movie just treating it as, yes, like it's right that she apologizes and doesn't really get anything back.
And I don't know if that was intentional, but it definitely plays into something I said earlier where he's that first boyfriend out of college or he's not the guy. And it
Yeah.
makes it better to be not the guy. You're not sad about this breakup necessarily. I'm not mad about it.
Well, oh, wait, I forgot. I have one final public service announcement, even while saying that that scene wasn't his fault. Ultimately, watching Meryl Streep and Adrian Grenier in the same movie is like watching the apex and the nadir of not just acting and not just art, but everything it means to be human on this planet. Okay, final.
Woo! Coming in hot.
I'm sorry, Adrian. You know, if you listen rightly, call me out on social media. I mean, that would be great publicity, frankly. And you're not really that terrible. You're just my least favorite aspect of a movie that I dearly love.
Oh,
Last scene I want to talk about, and then I do want to talk sequel a little bit, but the very final scene of the movie might be for me Meryl Streep's most impressive moment. She gives a series of looks in it that say so much, and this is putting you on the spot a little bit, but can you walk me through maybe what you see in that series of expressions?
so it's funny you asked me this because Brad asked me the same thing last night when I was making him rewatch it. I think at the end it's respect, but there's sort of like this anger, I think like a quick flash of like, "Oh yeah, you pissed me off." And then there's respect, and then there's just like abject dismissal, which is how she's
Yes.
like leaving all scene just like the Harry Potter, right? Like, "Well, I'm gonna take my coffee and go." So she just kinda gives her the nod, and now I'm on with my life and whatever.
Like respect and maybe even like a hint of pride, but then, yeah, she's not going to be thinking about Andy later that day. Like
No.
she's telling the driver to step on it, and now she's back to being Miranda Priestley. And that's what she does. So let's talk sequel a little bit. I am not big on watching trailers when I can avoid them, so I intentionally don't know too much yet. I'm not sure where you are on that, but let me just put it this way: with what you've seen or haven't seen, what are like your hopes and maybe your fears for the sequel?
With all sequels, what I hate is when they just rinse and repeat like the same gags. So it might
Yes.
be a little bit different storyline, but in the case of this one, if they've got another fish out of water person, that they're the same like fat girl jokes or whatever, I still think they'll pick on each other because it's fashion. But I hope I want their characters to have grown. What does Stanley Tucci say at the end of the Owen? I can hope they make it a deeper movie because it has such a following, but that they don't take themselves too seriously. So they've got to elevate it. They've got to take it deeper. These people have to be more than what they were in the first one, but it still has to be fun. So I think that's what I hope for it. I have seen a couple trailers, and there is a funny bit that I think is just perfect, which is Miranda doesn't even recognize Andy at all. Like, she doesn't remember either of them working for her.
That's so perfect with what we just talked about with the ending, right? We feel like in that moment she might have forgotten Andy.
They have been erased from the memory banks is what I've seen of the trailer, which I love. So the same set of friends we were talking to when I thought to do this podcast is this is one of those movies where like, yeah, I'm gonna get a few friends together and we're gonna go see it at the theater just because it's fun. Because it's gonna be neat to see everybody else coming out to see it. And everybody's gonna be in a good mood about seeing it. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to in seeing it. I might be disappointed, but it'll be a fun night out.
So, final thing we like to hit on this show for people who love The Devil Wears Prada, what other movies would you recommend?
Oh man. So I had to make a couple lists. What movies do I love? And then what movies would I recommend based on this? And those two have some intersection, but it's like not a lot. So it was actually kind of a hilarious analysis. But if I'm tearing off Devil Wears Prada and you like Devil Wears Prada, I think I have to mention The Intern because Anne Hathaway's in it, plays another girl boss. Robert De Niro plays her intern. Another cute, not super deep, but some good moments of work ethic and learning about people and that kind of thing. So, The Intern. We've already mentioned it, but it's also one of my favorite movies is Easy A. Stanley Tucci. Dialogue is whip sharp. Love Emma Stone. She's one of my favorites, and that was the movie that made me fall in love with her. Legally Blonde. I mean, Fish Out of Water, In the Opposite Direction. Again, funny dialogue, people acting as caricatures, but not like so outrageously. And then Mean Girls. I mean, I can quote a Mean Girls like nobody's business.
I love every one of those movies you mentioned. All right, I have a request of you as we wrap up here. After we both see the movie, would you be up for doing a mini episode for us to talk the sequel and just
Yeah.
our thoughts?
Yeah, we can do like a check back for sure.
Let's do it. It'll be fun. Thank you for one thing about picking this one. This is like only my second timely episode after the Oscars one. Usually it's kind of a random selection of movies. This is one that is perfect timing to do.
Good. Yeah, I know. Brad was pushing me. He's like, "You got to hurry up and get on Chief's calendar because that movie's coming out."
Thank you again for doing this, and we will talk to y'all soon.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
That's it for this one, folks. I'm Brad Glazer. I host, produce, and edit the show. Thanks for making it happen. Go out to Chris Bravender, Brad Kaufman, Jeffrey Glazer, and Julia Mott, who may love a great designer handbag almost as much as she loves our pet. The music you hear at the beginning of the show and now is by my friend Richard Bates and his band, The Huns. That's H-O-N-S. You can find The Huns' music on Bandcamp. Check them out and check out Richard's new album, Bates and Sons and Daughters, as well. This Sunday, we've got Barrett Landen coming back to the show. Last time, he regaled us on the warm comedy of Uncle Buck. This time, he's going darker as we dig into Skyfall. For my money, the best of all Bond flicks. Please follow, rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, all the things. You can follow us on Instagram at Your Favorite Flick, on Letterboxd at Favorite Flick, or shoot us an email at yourfavoriteflick@gmail.com. Huns, take us out.
brushing up on poetics. That's 14 times 365 inflection.